Good evening. It is 7:01 p.m., although Tira probably has 7 o'clock on her computer.
No, I have 7:01 as well. It's only a
Okay,
few
good.
seconds different.
Glad to know we're not in different time zones. All this meeting of the subcommittee uh, on the proposed transfer of property to order. It is a committee of the whole, so any members and alternates who are here will take the role. Mr. Lanky.
You naming us or you want us to speak?
John's trying to unmute and then he'll say hello. Although I suppose I could just.
Oh,
Very
this
good.
thing has changed on me. Yes, John B. Lanky, present.
Brian Knoyer,
I'm here, thank you.
Randy Blackmer,
Here.
Ray Williams,
Yeah.
Jane Salcy,
Here.
Brian Santos,
Here.
Alvin Hill,
Here.
and David Poplawski.
Present.
Okay. And Joseph Perotti Brown is here as well. Item 2 is to discuss the potential sale of 2 town-owned parcels, 0 Woodland Avenue, map 116, block 196, lots 5 and 6, as per Connecticut General Statutes 824.
So just while we're here at the beginning of the meeting, I have all on my laptop, all of the tabs open of all the documents that I sent over, including both of the depictions. I have the parcel map itself open, if you want me to zoom to that, and we can throw different layers on. In the Zoom room, you have the resident who is the one who is interested in the purchase of the properties, Mr. Jezierski. And then you also have Meg Washburn. And I did tell Meg that I would request of you guys that if you have any questions of her, to try to get them to her early, since this is an extra thing for her, which is not a part of her normal workload. So other than that stipulation, if we can get Meg up in and out early, I have no form or anything. I'm just here for you guys. I have no opinion on this issue. Just let me know which documents you want me to go to.
Great, thanks very much, Tira.
And Amy is coming in now.
Excellent, thank you. So I guess I would start there. Does anyone right now have any questions for Ms. Washburn? Recognizing that as we get into the discussion a little bit more may come up. But off the bat, is there anything for Ms. Washburn? Okay.
So,
John.
I was just going to say, just in the interest of maybe spurring it, Meg, I shared the meeting minutes for both the Conservation Commission and the Wetlands Commission with the committee. They were clear, but they were also very brief. So maybe if you could share some of that perspective. And then I do actually see Ray has his hand up, so he may have a question.
No, I just wanted to say the maps you said you sent in the minutes for both meetings, I never received.
Well, that's weird. Okay. I can try to send them to you both right now via email. I'll be zipping away from the screen.
This is Margaret Washburn.
Hi, Margaret. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Both of my commissions already agreed for the sale of all the lots that Mr. Jezierski asked for at the beginning. And now I understand it's reduced down to 2 lots. I did not have any objections to Mr. Jezierski purchasing these lots.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go
Someone have
ahead.
a question for me?
I would, yeah, I would, was there any, in either of the commissions, were any concerns or was there any discussion regarding the potential transfer?
Well, any discussion would have been recorded in the minutes. And if the understanding is that with the Wetlands Commission is that if Mr. Jezierski needed to come in for any permits over time to develop the lots, which at that time were more than two, then he would just need to come before the Wetlands Commission for a permit for those, whatever activities he was proposing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Ms. Washburn.
You're welcome.
John, you had, moved the creation of this subcommittee. Did you want to start the discussion?
Yeah, I'm personally, I'm more interested in keeping as much as this land for conservation for what, so we have, I don't have, I'm just very caught in the middle on this about selling stuff that the town has owned for since 1954, whatever. And then, if we start breaking this down and selling it, I mean, you look at what we've got in that whole, and just in that one general area, we're looking at 2, 3, 4, almost 5 acres of land. That's between those 3 roads from Woodland up to, what's that street? I had it written down here. Second one is Bloomfield, third and a fourth, but there's quite a few others. But it's just, I mean, Carolyn Wurridge did a lot to try to keep land that the town ended up owning, for conservation. And like I said in the meeting, that the town of Thompson is one of the few towns in the state of Connecticut that has at least 15% of land for conservation. And the state's requiring, they would like to see it at 25, which, is going to be a hard number to get. But if we keep it that way, we're going to keep developers out of this in certain areas, especially this area here, because it's under the Lake District. And by that is the lots are a little small, they can build on a smaller footprint. But that's one of the things, I'm trying to, let's keep everything where we want to keep them in the certain districts that would develop for that, and keep this one for for conservation and stuff like that. That's my main concern. That's how I'm looking at it too. Nothing against anybody that wants to try to get a couple of parcels of land and everything, but it's got to go out for bid. And then we need to decide where do we want to start with a recommendation if we decide to let 2 lots go or whatever. At what level are we going to start? Can we start to have the recommend to the Board of Selectmen that, when it goes out for bid, this is what it's going to be? And I asked Mr. Hopkins, Paul Hopkins, to sit in tonight to get his opinion on some of this stuff too as well.
Thank you, John. Jane?
I've got a couple of questions. One, I'd really like to hear some of Amy's input on this. And then as I go along, I'll do the other one, but I really would like to hear some input from her.
Yeah, absolutely, Jane. In about anything in particular, or just broad?
What her thoughts are on this. I mean, I'd like to see the land conserved, but what I'm here for tonight is to get educated on this one. So that's why I'd like to have some of her input.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jane. Amy?
Yes, well, the procedure is for the Board of Selectmen to send the request to Planning and Zoning. From my own personal opinion, I would agree with Jane. I would like to see the land that the town owns surrounding Schoolhouse Pond, Little Pond, whatever you call it. I would like to see it conserved. And I think based on Mr. Jezierski's request that he wanted to increase the privacy and enjoyment of his land, I don't think that would inhibit it if the land was just kept in conservation, so to speak. So that is my personal opinion, and that would be my opinion as a selectman. But again, it was important for planning and zoning to have their input and to go through the proper process.
Right, according to statute.
And just one more time, because I think Margaret is anxious to provide whatever input she might have and then jump off. So I would again ask if the commission has anything they want to specifically address towards what discussion the Conservation or Wetlands Commissions might have had that was not captured in the minutes before we let her go. I would encourage you guys to ask that first.
I think if my order is correct, I've got Dave, then Ryan. Dave has withdrawn his hand. So Ray and then Jane.
Okay, on the town people have been paying for us to go to these seminars. The last seminar we just went to was all conservation. This falls in exactly what they're saying to try to save for conservation, especially with the diversity database and the endangered species that could be in, the small water holes out there all along all the wetlands. And I myself, my mind ain't made up 100%, but it's real close on how I feel about this. I feel the same way that if he's looking for, to save around his property, that property there, if it was into a conservation easement, that would be pretty much the same thing as what he wants to do for the seclusion of his own property.
Thank you, Ray. Jane?
Well, along the same lines of what Ray just said, I'd like to hear what Mr. Jezierski, if it is just to have his land, I'm going to say basically protected. My thoughts are that putting it in conservation easement would satisfy him, but I would like to hear his input on that as well, please.
Yeah, certainly. So just sort of procedurally, if we want to allow Mr. Jezierski to speak, I guess so. Procedurally, my question is: do we want to open it up to all citizens then who are here, and not just the staff and commission members, including Ms. St. Ange, who's a ex officio member?
Well, I think the only other person who's dialed in who is not sort of one of the above is also one of the selectmen. Ken Beausoleil is in the room. And I mean, Mr. Jezierski's a directly interested party. So I think you can, it doesn't fall under like the random heading of citizens' comments. You could be asking him for his input because it's germane to the issue. I think that's fine.
Okay.
That would,
Uh,
that would be,
But again, does anybody have anything else for Margaret before we let her go?
I guess for Margaret, I'm just curious about the determination of it not being, any conflicts with inland wetlands. I would like to hear her point of view on that. And I agree that it should be in conservation or potentially some kind of a deed restriction or a conservation easement, as Ray suggested.
Tara, do you have a map that shows the wetlands on the two lots that Mr. Jezierski's now asking to
I
buy?
can go to the actual parcel map system, so just give me a second and I will outline them and throw the layers on. So that'll just take me a minute. Oops. Bigger, not smaller.
Tara, on that map you just had,
Yeah.
that blue, light blue line or whatever, that would be Mr. Jezierski's property?
So I'm just drawing a little polygon around the two lots in question, and then you will actually see exactly the for God's sake, why is this doing this? Measure polygon. That's why I just need a minute, John.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So share screen.
On that map that you were looking at, Mr. Jezierski owns lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I believe the lots in question are 5 and 6.
Yeah, so that's what I have now up on the screen. This green rectangle is Mr. Jezierski's existing property. The two lots in question, and the first one I sent over, it had 5 through 9 because that's what the original agenda said. But this is 5 and 6, which are the two lots in question. This is approximate 6,605 square feet. And then if we're going to throw the layers on, let's see, you asked for wetlands. That's what the pink or light purple is. So technically, and this is all very approximate. And then the other layer that I had thrown on the one that went around, which is this black and white cross hatching, that indicates that this has NDDB implications. That's the Natural Diversity Database, indicating the possible presence of species of concern. And the mapping for that, if you go on the website, for the EEP website, they don't tell you up front if you just are going in and looking casually what those species are. I believe they do that as a protective measure so that people won't go essentially prospecting for them. So you can see that, and I can zoom out here, pretty much that entire area incorporating this old campground either has that NDDB layering over it or is very close to it, and lots of wetlands. But again, the two properties in question are these right here.
Right, and so when I did the inspection, this is Margaret Washburn. I did the inspection with John Jezierski. The first two lots looked fairly level and not like there were wetlands there. They looked similar to the terrain on the property that he already owns, and the lots further down that he's no longer asking to buy looked like they had wetlands on them. But, and as Tara pointed out, this mapping isn't meant to be equivalent to having a soil scientist flag anything, but these two lots didn't seem to have wetlands on them.
And that is consistent with the layering in the parcel map system.
Thank you, Ms. Washburn. Ray,
You're
did you have a
welcome.
question for Margaret?
Yes, I do.
Great.
In 2022, Mr. Simon that owned put the property in that abuts this, he was asked for an NDDB report done on his property, and I was just wondering, do you know if that report ever came in? Because I know by the time wetlands approved this property, that report hasn't come in, and I was just wondering if you know if that came in, you know, after that. I know it would have been before you got in, but I didn't know if you would happen to seen that at all.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, because in the minutes of the June 2022 meeting, it was brought up. I think it was minute 7.14 or something like that. In the meeting, it was brought up about Daniel was asked about it, and he said he did not get he did not have the report from the state by then, and that would be, you know, if that report was in, it would, you know, pretty much cover that whole corner of that whole property, because that, you know, it's all adjoining.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone have anything else for Ms. Washburn?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Lackey.
Ms. Washburn, you should be able to look back in the records in the inland wet in your office. That was about the time that oh my God, I just had a senior citizens moment on her name. Marla, she should have had records of that from the state and everything. It should be in there. It should be on file, shouldn't it?
Records from what?
What Ray just said about, you know, what the way the inland wetlands, you know, with where the species are and everything like that. I thought that was all done. It was supposedly done back in that time.
There may be some records, but I don't even have an address for the site that Mr. Williams was mentioning. I don't know what the subject property is that being asked about.
Do you have an idea, Ray? You're looking
In the application, it was put in as 0 Babula Road. I could go back and
Ray, zero Sand Dam Road, Ray.
Oh, okay. I know the gentleman's name. I could go back and into my the stuff I was looking at. I was looking at where before where I read into minutes. I watched from 21 to 25 on minutes of looking for something that was in here about these lots, and that's when I came across that there, and I was that's when I was wondering about the oh geez, if that report came in.
Yeah, I when you brought it up, Ray, I pulled up those minutes, and it's Mark Simon on 0 Sand Dam Road.
Okay, so not the 0 Babula. This one?
Right, I thought it was Babula Road because that's where the driveway goes in off of.
I mean, so it could be this 154, but if it was, I mean, I don't know.
If I may please say something.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
of these properties that surround the 2 lots Mr. Jazerski wants to buy may have different species listed for their mapping. So in other words, if Mr. Simon got a letter from NDDB, that might list a certain number of species. And if this other parcel that is 0 Babula Road got a report from NDDB, it may list some of the same ones or some different ones. And so the best way to find out what's listed for those 2 lots is to ask NDDB to give tell us what species of concern are there, but again, it's mostly uplands, and I believe the species of concern are more wetland species, although it's true that the upland review area, development of the upland review area affects what happens in the wetlands, but I don't have that information at hand regarding any of these properties as to what the species of concern were, but the fact that it's mapped as NDDB habitat indicates that if Mr. Jezierski bought the lots and he wanted to develop them, he would have to come, and he's working in an upland review area, he would have to come before the Inland Wetlands Commission for a permit. And so that's the way the Wetlands Commission left it, was that if he bought these lots and they're subject to this kind of mapping, he'd have to have the wetlands delineated and apply for a permit.
So, Margaret, is it safe to say the Inland Wetlands Commission decision was based on the premise that that commission would have a future input on any development in those lots?
If it was in the upland review area, yes. There's so many properties in this area that are subject to the mapping of the natural diversity database that it's very common for us to get an application, for example, to put in a swimming pool or to put in a deck all around the wetlands of concern and this is, these wetlands are significant. They're the border on the 5 Mile brook. And the commission wants to protect them, but if a person applies for a permit and they apply to NDDB for their report, then depending on what NDDB comes back with, the commission often approves the work.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Brian?
I'm trying to wrap my head around a few things, so just bear with me for a second. I think that today's agenda talks about lots 5 through 9. Can you go zoom back in?
Yeah, 5 through 9, Brian, was what was originally presented. But the request has been amended just to cover lots 5 and 6.
So all the talk about when John Jezierski, I'm looking at the discussion memo where it said John stated that his purpose of purchasing lots 5 and 6 would increase the privacy of his primary lot and has no plans. This is where I get confused, to further develop on lots 1 through 6. So is 1 through 4 his?
Because he already owns 1 through 4.
Okay, very good. So my next question is this. It's just to increase the privacy. So does the town have any other plans for 5 and 6? I think the answer is no, right? So essentially, if it's for privacy, there's 2 things that we can do here, right? We can, instead of selling, we can just put in a conservation easement, which I think would satisfy John's request for privacy. Or in the case of what we're talking about tonight is selling, which we could put a deed restriction on the sale of the property. Though I think a deed restriction can sometimes be challenged in the future, but if a deed restriction is put on it, it would still say that there would be no development of the property. So if there's no development, I think those are our 2 options, unless I'm missing something here. It sounds like those are our 2 options.
Brian, I agree. That's exactly what I said too. So both of those comments.
And that's how I'm thinking also, Brian.
I agree with you 100% too, Brian.
But it's just, I don't know if we want to I guess I want to hear from John. Does he care if we just say, oh yeah, we're just going to put it in conservation and keep it our property, and then you still get your privacy? It sounds like that is a little bit more tight of a restriction than us selling it to you and putting a deed restriction on it, which then somebody else could probably challenge that.
Yeah, that's why I wanted his input too, because I'm right along there with you. He would still have the privacy if it was put into a conservatorship. Yes.
I mean, we're having Margaret here to talk about like all the nature impacts, but I don't think the word development is not even being in play here. So I don't really know why we're talking about that, but I feel like those are our two options. I guess I'm gonna.
And so yeah, I do want to, as several of you said, get to Mr. Jezierski. Do we anticipate any further questions for Ms. Washburn?
I don't have any if we're not talking about development. So there you go.
Hearing no others, thank you for your time, Margaret, and appreciate your being here.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thanks,
Bye
Meg.
now. Bye.
Alvin, I did see your hand up, but then you took it down. I don't know if
Well, I was just going to just go right along pretty much what Brian said. I mean, if this man you put deed restriction on as part of the approval of his purchasing the land, that deed restriction doesn't go with him. It goes with the land forever.
Yeah, it's just I know those have been challenged in the past, but I mean, yes, Alan, it discontinues in perpetuity.
so at this point, I will invite Mr. Jezierski. You've heard some of the questions that the commission has, so I'm happy to hear your responses to those.
So you want me to speak in now?
Yes, please, Mr. Jezierski.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you.
John, we can't hear you, pal.
What we can hear you, but you're all garbled. Turn off your video, Mr. Jezierski. Sometimes
Okay.
it's a bandwidth thing. Try it
Okay,
now.
video's off. Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah.
Much better.
Yes, much
Okay.
better.
Yeah, I must have overloaded my phone. With the video and the audio going at the same time. So originally, my wife has a tea house there. So I said, well, we'll just get the 5 lots from the town, because they asked me before if I wanted to purchase them, because there was no taxes paid on them. And that's why I didn't want them, because why would I pay taxes if I didn't, was gonna do anything with the land? So they said it would make it a buildable lot. So I said, okay, I'll drop it down to 2, so it doesn't make it buildable for someone else to purchase it. Because 5 lots now makes it over the 15,000 square foot lot. It makes it buildable. So I dropped it down to 2, and I said, okay, it's for privacy. But like I said, my wife wants a little Zen garden there. She wants to put a little garden there. It's not buildable. It's a Zen garden to go with a Japanese tea house theme. So it's for meditation. I don't know. That's buildable. I mean, she's putting something there. So she wants the privacy. So she has those 2 lots. She could put a Zen garden there and doesn't have to worry about it. Did you want to tell the story?
So the Zen garden didn't go on the 2 lots for privacy. The Zen garden already in my own lot.
She's speaking. Do you want to tell?
So
She's thinking about putting a Zen garden close to there. I don't know what the easement has to be.
In our land already.
So that's basically where it stands. We're not planning on putting houses there. If I seriously wanted to do something, I could subdivide my lot and just break it off that way if I want to build something. But I'm not gonna do that. I just want these 2 lots. She has a little tea house there. She asked me to talk to the town. And like I said, they mentioned it before. They wanted to sell it to me and I wasn't interested. So it's mostly for her. So I understand putting a deed on there, restriction, but I told the selectmen, If something happens to me, if I hospitalized or whatever, then I'm locked in for life with that locked out. But at this point in time, I'm not planning on doing anything with the land, just a little Zen garden up to the boundary, I guess.
I don't
But
want,
that makes sense.
I don't want a neighbor passing by making all the noise when you go
Right.
back.
So that's basically where we stand. So I just said, okay, I'll ask the town. And now I didn't know I was jumping down this rabbit hole. It's like I figured, just sell him the land, I get rid of it. He'll pay taxes on it. We'll be happy. But times have changed since they asked me to buy it like 20 years ago. So now it's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Well, thank you for that context, Mr. Jezierski. I got Mr. Hopkins.
Got a picture of the tea house that she has up there. Little people say it looks like a Pizza Hut. There's a little tea house there, and that's what she has on her land. And she wanted a little garden, and that's where we stand now.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Those two lots not gonna be a garden.
So Mr. Hopkins and then Mr. Williams.
So I just wanted to add to that. So even though if you put a conservation easement or some type of covenant on these properties, if you look at it as a whole, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 become a buildable lot. So as long as they don't build on 5 and 6, it wouldn't break that covenant, but that still could be considered a building lot for development purposes with those 2 extra lots.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Okay, and on the map where that goes in, Woodland Ave, with everything that's going down there with who owns the roads, who don't own the roads. Even if them 2 lots were sold, going right up the middle of them lots, there's actually a paper road. So, you know, that would just turn that into a whole cluster somewhere down the road. You know, if they put if they did put a garden in there, and then somebody actually goes in and purchases them roads, that garden would be in the middle of their roads. I understand his wife said the garden wasn't going to go back there. They're looking for it for privacy. But if that was put into a conservation easement, that would be privacy. Just, you know, my opinion, and looking at the map and seeing that paper road go down there, and Paul knows I've talked to him about the roads down there before, and he knows how I feel about them roads. But I just wanted to point that out about that Woodland Ave going right up the middle of them 2 lots.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Any Mr. Santos?
I mean, in the deed restriction, we could put something or recommend something for that paper road, Ray. And I know Margaret left, and it's unfair to probably say what I'm going to say, but I mean, I think it'd be up to her whether or not a Zen garden is a conservation measure, depending on what happens or what is designed there for that Zen garden. I'm just making those 2 comments.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And to be clear, it sounds to me like, and Mr. Jezierski can correct me if I'm wrong, that the Zen garden would be on the already existing property, not on lot 5 and 6.
That's what she's saying. It'll be on lot 4, on our lot, but it'll be close, so close to lot 5. You know, I don't know how far away you would have to be for lot 5. So it just felt more secure if we own 5 and 6, just to put it on book that we own it. That way we don't have any problems with anything. Like I said, I didn't know I was going down this rabbit hole. Oh yeah, take these lots, we don't want them. So.
Yeah, understood.
Thank you for that clarity, Joe. I did not realize it was on 4.
Mm-hmm.
If Mr. Jezierski were to buy that And Woodside Ave is just a paper road. He would own all the land under Woodside Ave. So I wouldn't be concerned what happens to that. He could just erase it, right?
Right, yeah, go ahead, Ray. I was gonna say, I saw your hand go up for a minute.
Okay, I was told you can't erase the paper roads because the heir of the guy that all them lots were taken from in 1954 supposedly still owns them roads, even though there hasn't been no taxes paid on them since 1954. This is a big blunder in the town right now. Not big, but you know, there's quite a bit of squawk in the background going on about these paper roads down there. So you can't just say you own the paper road. There is some properties down there where people have 3 paper roads going through them. And I know firsthand that, you know, previous assessors said there's no way to get rid of them paper roads. And now supposedly there is a way to get rid of them if you could chase back an heir of somebody that hasn't paid taxes on that property since 1954, which the town should have taken them. They own hundreds of thousands of dollars on taxes, and the town just don't want to take care of the roads going through there. But that's a total different thing. I'm not even going to say anything else about that. But the paper roads are definitely a problem down there with supposedly somebody owning them.
Thank you, Ray. And before I go to Mr. Hopkins, although I see you taking your hand down, I will just note that Kais or Levac has entered the meeting at 7:43. Hello, Kais. Mr. Hopkins.
So I just wanted to add some clarity to the road situation. So Ray's correct. So the town hadn't been assessing those or taxing those roads since they were created. We created an account for them about 2 years ago and started taxing them. They are still privately owned. They were never transferred out of the original developer's name. So the roads technically can and currently still can be acquired by anybody who's willing to do the research and contact the estate heirs and make an offer on them. So it is possible for someone to acquire the roads. I'm not sure what assessor said that wasn't a thing, but it definitely is a thing that can happen if somebody were to do the work.
I think what can't happen is the town can't just say, oh, we're discontinuing the road and now the abutters own it, because the town doesn't own it in the first place.
Correct. So the town has no authority technically over those roads. They are privately owned just as every other private road in the town.
Thank you for that context. Mr. Williams.
Also, on the deeds of all these people's property down there, it says any and all roads. It gives you access to any and all roads. And there's somebody down there that bought one of the roads, and now that was a right of way to somebody else's property down there, and this hasn't even come up yet. I just found this out yesterday, and now the guy that bought that road won't let them people get to their property. So it's you know, it's worse than a rabbit hole, like Mr. Jezierski said that he's going through trying to acquire this.
Yeah. Thanks, Ray.
We've been having.
So, you know, recognizing that the purpose of this evening was to gather information, you know, and that action potentially would be taken at the next commission meeting. Are there any more questions, any more comments, any more information members who are here tonight feel like they need before considering action at the April commission meeting?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lenke.
I have a question for Mr. Hopkins. what's all the information we're putting together on this. I have one question to him, is if this was, we'll just say hypothetically, it could go through for Mr. Jezierski. Is there anything about recommending where the starting price could be for these? Because it's got to go out for bid. We just can't directly sell it to them. It's got to, we can recommend everything for the Board of Finance. I mean, the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and then it's, I think, and then it goes to a town meeting, I believe. Then it goes, and after that, it can go out for bid or not.
So I would say we have a sale of a couple of these smaller parcels, and they generally range from $1,000 to about $3,000 per lot. So that would be the going price for one of these lots with a conservation easement on it. Now, if you decided not to go with the conservation easement and you decided to sell these out in, say, blocks, about 6 lots would be able to be developed into a building lot potentially. And lots in that area would go for about $75,000. So with the conservation, I would say, relatively speaking, about $2,000 a lot is probably a good starting point. If you're not going to do some type of conservation, I would take that $75,000 and divide it up between the number of lots being purchased to come up with a reasonable value that would generate what it's worth.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Mr. Williams.
This is kind of getting away from what we were, talking about selling the rest of these lots is getting away from what this meeting is about. But then just to say something about that, now you're talking about breaking up this into 6 lots and selling them. How can you sell lots when we don't have right-of-ways to them lots, seeing somebody else owns them roads and it's not put into the deeds that you can use them roads? Like I said, that's not what this meeting's about. The rest of this meeting's about them two lots.
That could take us a long time to discuss. Welcome to my world. Oh, I just want to say something. Those 6 lots are not buildable because of wetland. You can't build it, so it's in wetland. If you tried to subdivide it, there's no way it could be a buildable lot. If you look at the map, it's in wetland. That makes them not valuable, that valuable.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Santos.
If we were to recommend putting it under the conservation easement, again, that would be something that I believe lasts in perpetuity. What's the comments or the feedback on that from this commission? Like, are we okay with that? With these 2 pieces of these 2 lots?
Mr. Poplawski.
You're on mute, Dave.
There I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. But Brian, my only question is, my statement is, if we put a conservation easement on there and that's a paper road, how does that affect that paper road with all the discussion?
Well, I'm viewing the paper road as a different process. I think that's a different discussion for a different night. So maybe that's going to be why we can't rule on this right now, or at least recommend something. I think you could put a tax lien on those roads and come up with a different way of obtaining them. Now, I don't know if they'll ever be removed from plans that they're paper roads, but you could put a tax lien on those, give it a duration, let that go through, and then there's a different process after that in order to be able to, I don't want to use the wrong words here, like clearly John and his family own a good portion of that road. I don't know if those lot lines are all correct there, but obviously it's on private property. But I think there's a different process for that, and it's above my pay grade, and I don't want to get in trouble here, but like I feel like there's something that could be done with those paper roads.
If I could just interject here for just 1 second, I think we need to make some distinction between a conservation easement and a deed restriction. And this is just based on conversation I had with Meg, and this was I was kind of hoping this piece of the conversation would come up while she was still here, because she can describe that better than I can.
Well, there's it's a deed restriction is selling it and putting it on the deed, and the conservation portion is the town remains the owner.
Yes and no. Right now, the town owns them and is not going to develop them. And as long as the town owns them, there's only two options: sell them. Well, three options: sell them, don't sell them and develop them, don't sell them, don't develop them. A deed restriction to the new owner, as you point out, it goes in perpetuity, and that becomes just between lawyers. But you know, the I wish you were still here, but the issue of the easement involves, we would have to, if we were putting it on, we would have to be paying for surveys, lawyers' fees to describe the easement, as opposed to the sort of passive protection through neglect that it's going through now. And I just brought this depiction up to just to show where the terminus of each of the paper roads is in relation to the parcels that the town currently owns. So the only ones where the mapped path of the paper roads actually empty into the town-owned parcels are at 5 and 6 on Wood Land, which is incorrectly labeled Woodside, and 7 and 8 on Greenwood. And that may not make any difference for your consideration, but I guess it's to point out that most of them are somewhat landlocked already and are surrounded by privately owned parcels.
Mr. Hopkins and then Mr. Williams.
So the discussion about conservation easement or a deed restriction, really from the town's perspective, really what we want to simply do is just put a deed covenant on there. And we can basically write on the deed without doing a survey or getting a legal involved more than just writing it, that the parcels can't be developed, constructed on, or otherwise built upon for the life of the lots. And that covenant would cover what we're talking about. The one problem is whenever you put a deed covenant on a property, it's a civil matter. So if somebody decided to build on these sometime in the future, it would be incumbent upon somebody else to then take them to court to enforce that covenant. It's not something that the town directly would get involved with.
I agree.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Williams.
Well, thank you, Paul, for bringing that up, because I did talk with Margaret and she was saying stuff about having to have it surveyed, and I really didn't understand that. And that explains that you don't have to have it surveyed. And another thing is that's not on this map, along the backside of Babula's field, there's another road that runs all the way down, and I forgot the name of it. It was on, there's another paper road that runs right down where the blue lines are. And I think all of these other lines hook to that road, but they only go in, on this map, they're only going in as far as the houses are built on them paper roads. I wish I could share the map I have on my phone, but I'm not sure how to do that. Like Brian says, that's above my pay grade.
I'm happy to give you screen share capability, but I'm totally sympathetic if it's too hard to do on the phone. It's a pain not to do it on the laptop.
Well, I'm looking on my phone right now. There's a road that goes down the back, Edgewood Street, and all of the paper roads hook to Edgeland Street. That goes almost right across, right along Eddie Babula's property. I wish I could share this picture I have right here, but it's a picture of the whole development.
Well, since you can't technically take action in subcommittee, if you can screenshot it and send it to me, you can always include it in your meeting documents for the April meeting for more
Okay.
context.
Because that's it's in the Johnson Grove development, when it was first put in. That was even before what was it? E.L. Parker was in on this too. There was two different developers. It was sold from one to the other. I've been researching all this stuff for quite a while, a couple of years now. So I will get you a picture of this, and maybe I'll stop in tomorrow, and I can maybe get it printed off my phone or something.
Thanks, Ryan. Brian?
So if we were to go down the deed path with John, it doesn't sound like he's concerned about the paper road. I don't want to call it, I guess, concerned. I mean, I think we're all making it known that whoever owns those roads could come out of the woodwork, no pun intended. I mean, as long as John is aware of that, I just kind of want acknowledgement of that, right? Because Ray's bringing that up, that these roads seem to be connected in some way, shape, or form. The town hasn't put a tax lien on those roads to kind of get this person to come out of the woodwork to pay taxes. I just wanted to bring that up to John. If we were to make the recommendation to deeds, it sounds like there could be an issue in the future. This person comes out of the woodwork.
Thanks, Brian. Did you want Mr. Jezierski to comment on that, or do you just wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking silence as a yes.
No, well, everyone has backlot, all the backlot owners on their deed has right of ways to the beaches and the roads, those roads at the moment. It's on our deed when we purchased the land way back when. So I don't know how they could actually, like you mentioned the case where the guy bought the road and he lost his right of way. I don't know how that's possible. If it's on his deed, he already has a right of way on that road. But yeah, it wouldn't bother me because I know Genesic owns the lots across from me. The way Woodland Ave is drawn up, it looks like it's wrong if you look at the way the lot lines go. I mean, they put Woodside, or the Woodland, Woodside, they got it going right through lots 5 and 6, but the way the lots are divided, it looks like it's a straight shot right down the middle because they're not touching, those lots are not touching. So I always assumed the road went straight down that line, divided our lot. So, like you said, it had to be surveyed to really find where the boundaries are, and who would want to pay for that, the surveying. So at the moment, the paper road doesn't bother me because I still have access to Center Street with my other 4 lots.
Thank you, Mr. Jezierski. Yes, Mr. Santos.
How are we going about this tonight, Joe? Is there a motion, or are we just making a consensus, or what's the deal with this?
So my understanding of tonight's meeting is that this was an information gathering meeting, and that right? We cannot take action tonight. The action will be taken at the April meeting. After some period of further discussion there, I guess. But yeah, this is a truly information gathering subcommittee meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'd be
strictly
curious to
speaking,
know-
I don't need, strictly speaking, I don't think you even need consensus to achieve tonight. You will ultimately complete your discussion in the regular meeting with the option to take action.
Right.
I'd
Randy?
be curious to know what Rich would have to say about Woodland Ave, where if there's hasn't been anything done on that paper road, no taxes paid, no nothing for 75 years. There's got to be someplace where Mr. Jezierski would should be able to not have to worry about that anymore.
I can certainly pose the question to Attorney Roberts. My instinct tells me, and it could be totally wrong, this is that Mr. Jezierski would have a strong case for adverse possession, at least on the access from lots 1 through 4, if he's owned and maintained that property and Woodland goes through it. But I'm happy to follow up with Rich on that particular question.
And the next thing is starting at lot 7 on up. That's all wetlands in back of that, right? All that pink.
I can throw it back on. Yep.
That's correct, yeah.
So it's going to be kind of hard for anybody to do much of anything with that if they wanted to.
Right.
So the odds of somebody wanting access on Woodland Ave to lot 7 is slim to none.
Right. Is there any other question, any other bit of information we are looking to get tonight? Mr. Santos.
I'm just letting you know I'm all set. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lanky.
Yes, I think all the information that we've gathered tonight and what we see with this map and everything is a good thing for us to take to the regular meeting, and especially if Tara asks Mr. Roberts the question and all of that, so we have that in front of us and all the stuff that was brought up tonight, if she can do that.
I would be happy to go back to Attorney Roberts with that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Okay, I just wanted to let Tara know I will bring in that other map tomorrow. And but another thing I want to say is, if there's a way to take this road by adverse possession, everybody down there that owns from the main road going in so far is going to want to take their to take all them other roads by adverse possession. Then some lawyer's going to make some money.
What could
they always do? Mr. Lincoln.
Can Tara also ask that type of question to Mr. Roberts about these roads? What would be the best avenue to take?
The best avenue to take in what way, John? I'm not sure I'm following you.
Either by possession, by tax, find out, who still owns it, that inherited it and everything, because taxes haven't been paid. Then, would that add to the value, we'll say, of everything? Because 7 through, like Mr. Blackmore said, 7 through was it 12
19.
7 through 19 on this side, and then
Yep.
it's like
So-
31 through 37 on the other side.
Okay, so those there are in the pink, so you know, it's wetlands and like Margaret said, you know, with all the species and it's got little hills, it's got little lows and everything where, you know, water would probably be sitting and everything. You know, this is, you know, the information is good. I like what we got tonight to make, you know, to make a better or a much better conscious decision if when we you know, we bring it into the regular meeting.
Great. Mr. Santos.
Ray, when you were saying adverse possession, were you saying to John to do that?
I wasn't saying to do it. I was just saying that since Mr. Jezierski already owns lots 1 through 4, and at least on this depiction, it appears that woodland runs through those parcels, that he may have a strong case for adverse possession if he has been maintaining his properties, including any section of woodland that runs through it.
Okay, very good. I would agree with that. It absolutely does.
Yeah, Brian, what I was saying is there's a lot of other people that own both sides of some of them paper roads that goes all the way through their property. So if he makes a precedent of getting that by adverse possession, everybody else that lives down there that owns, if they own lots on both sides and they've been taking care of that paper road, they would be able to file the same thing. That's what I was getting at.
Yep, understood, Ray. Thank you.
Mr. Hopkins.
So it might be a good question for the attorney, but I don't believe they can take it through adverse possession because they have deeded easements. So it's already recognized that they have the use of those roads. So I don't think adverse possession's an option for most of the residents there.
Thank you, Paul. That's very helpful. I will probably come up to your office at some point tomorrow to get your help in formulating an intelligible question
Thank you.
for Rich, to make sure that we're asking something that is truly germane.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Tara and Paul. Thank you.
If there is nothing further, no further questions, I would just like to express my gratitude to Ms. Washburn, Mr. Hopkins, Amy and Ken for being here this evening, and Mr. Jezierski, you as well, of course. If there's nothing further, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll say,
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting of the subcommittee is adjourned at 8:09 p.m. Thank you all very much.
and thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Chair.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.